When people matter, companies thrive. Hey guys, thank you for joining me this week. I'm super pumped to introduce you to my guest this week. I have Dr. Debbie Phillips. She's president of the Quadrillion. If you guys have seen her on LinkedIn, then you're very familiar with her vast experience in the real estate world and sector. So welcome, Debbie. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Monica, thank you. Thank you for asking me to participate today. We're going to have a great workshop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Debbie, tell us a little bit, the listeners, a little bit about the Quadrillion and about who you are and what you do.
Well, I like to say I'm a 34-year industry veteran, and really the sweet spot in my work is really at the heart or the intersection of workforce development, real estate, and education. And I formed my own company, the Quadrillion, over 26 years ago. But what lights me up every day, Monica, is telling someone about this great industry that we get to work in.
I love that. That's such a great intro. And I know I read a quote of yours. I was going to use it for the intro quote, but I'm going to pull a couple of pieces out of it. But I loved that you quoted that an educator must first use the 2 R's, rigor and relevance. And so I really loved reading about you and that. And I totally agree. Our industry is one of those industries where, you get into it and I think it traps you. You either fall in love with it or you run really fast in the opposite direction. And most of us, I think, have fallen into it. So let's dive into a little bit. I know you sent some questions, and I know that the Quadrillion it provides outsourcing solutions to organizations where the viability is dependent on top tier human capital. I think that perfectly sums up the real estate sector. We are in a people crisis with the Great Resignation, which leads me kind of to your first point that you mentioned was how can leaders help their teams post pandemic? And I'm going to let you dive into that. My question for you, for myself too, is I've kind of expressed to my teams where if we were all marathon runners regularly, and then the pandemic came along and we didn't run for 2 years, and now we're back sprinting again or running again, and people's levels are quite drastically different. And I think it's causing a lot more stress on people post-pandemic to try to gear up to what we were pre-pandemic. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on, how we can help the team heal post this large experience we've recently had.
Well, Monica, let's just keep with the marathon theme, because no matter if you are a first-time walker or runner or you are a lifetime marathoner, there's always something unexpected out there on the trail. And I will tell you that trauma is real. And our teams today are very raw. And I think that, if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of like that muscle atrophies. But we've got to help our team develop that strong mental muscle. And one way that I think can help in that healing is to listen and listen some more. I think so many times we jump into our agendas because we're high and heavy producers. We're high performance team members. That's what, gets our thrill. But I think it's important to really take time to have those one-to-one check-ins, to just take time to listen and listen without judgment. It's so easy to say, kids should be back in school, or, everybody should wear a mask, or, and I think we need to give up our Judge Judy hat. I think we need to listen. Stephen Covey wrote that a long time ago, Monica, in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, seek to understand and then to be understood. And I think we have to listen. We have to listen with empathy. We have to listen with, the mindset of how can we help? And I think, in order to build resilient teams, we have to start by just putting some time into our meeting agendas and not just jumping into the work, or not just saying, hey, have we done this inspection report? But hey, what did everybody do this weekend? What is there something to celebrate? What was the headline moment in your week? that you'd like to share. So all of those are ways to check in with people mentally.
I love that. That's a really valid point. I think for me, I noticed the pandemic caused or a lot of people, I'm sure the pandemic caused us all to slow down. So what a great reminder that while we slowed down and while we're gearing back up, to really take the lessons we've learned from the pandemic to slow down and really, you're right, listen. And I'm trying to be a better listener this year, not listening to respond, listening to actually hear. So I love all of that. That's really valid. And I love your point of your Judge Judy hat, because one of my favorite sayings is be more lovey, less judgy. So I totally can relate with that. All valid and great points and great reminders as well. So I love that you call vitamin E your vitamin encouragement. Why do you think, or, share with us why you think vitamin E is essential in the workplace?
Well, we all need encouragement. And, I like to call myself the Chief Encouragement Officer, the CEO. But I also have a program that I talk regularly about. You're the CEO of YOU. You have to encourage yourself, and you have to take out some of those destructive mental tapes that we tell ourselves, maybe that we're not good enough, or we don't deserve it. So we have to change those tapes out first. And then I always like to say that people want to do a good job. Nobody wakes up and says, oh, I think I'll just be mediocre today. Nobody wants to be mediocre. People want to be excellent. And a lot of times, as educators, it's our role to help people get the tools and resources and the techniques to help offer that encouragement. But I always like to say, Monica, the 4 most important leadership words are I believe in you.
I love that. That's excellent. That's a good takeaway for me.
I love it.
And you're right. Yeah, you're right. Everybody does want a pat on the back. They want to be recognized. They want to be appreciated, and they want to do a good job. And you're right. We don't wake up and think, I'm going to go to work today and just, have it. So totally relative there. And I think it's good for others as well. I love that. I'm going to steal it. I always like the vitamin C for the ocean, but I'm going to steal vitamin E for encouragement, because we all can use that, especially in tough times. So obviously, we've talked about employees and the Great Resignation a little bit, touched on that, and the pandemic. People are trying to solve the talent crisis. And I think, for me or your business, it helps us, obviously, the talent crisis, but, kind of for those big companies that management companies that follow and listen along, what are recommendations that you have for solving the talent crisis?
Well, I like to call it kind of the 5-prong process. First of all, is sourcing talent. Not every position that we have available requires a 4-year degree. So we need to look at our high school graduates. We need to offer those work-based learning opportunities for, those students that need to get some credit, but also need to get some experience. So the very first thing is, I want everybody to think about new sourcing opportunities. Where do you source your talent? Number 2 is onboarding. Nothing is more discouraging than for you to take a new position, and the first day you come to work, you're just kind of sitting around, that nobody looks like they've prepared for you. So onboarding. And the reason I mention that, and you say, well, is that a solution to the talent crisis? Absolutely, because Monica, we've worked in this business long enough that we know the power of referral, that employee referrals are one of the best ways to get high potential talent. So that onboarding experience needs to be very planned. It needs to be executed. And then number 3 is engaging. That's all about the learning and development. We know that millennials, if you don't show them a career path in the first 14 months, they'll be thinking, hey, maybe this place isn't for me. So we need to have a very robust learning and development process. Another key area is, how do you retain top tier talent? Well, I believe that you have to match them to the job. It's called job fit. That's one of the the most predictive indicators of success in anybody's job is, am I wired to do the job you've asked me to do? And then the fifth pillar, I call it kind of releasing and rehiring. You know, not everybody is meant for your culture. And so I think, you know, another word could be right sizing or reskilling. That don't be afraid to hire someone back. Maybe they took a different path, and I call them the boomerangs. A lot of times people will come back to companies. So those are kind of the five pillars, or the five-pronged process to solving the talent crisis. People don't leave companies, people leave people.
Yeah.
And so I think it's real important that we pay attention to relationships.
Those are all really valid pillars and points. I loved hearing those from you. I think, you know, watching our industry as a whole and being an industry vet myself, as long as we've been in this business, it's changed over the years quite drastically. And I think that, you know, when I look back, I remember sitting in every position to earn my way up the ladder, right? And now, you know, I watched it turning probably a good, I don't know, past 5 to 10 years, where, you know, that younger generation, more even millennials, are operating these multi-million-dollar assets. Regional managers are, you know, mid 20s to 30, early, you know, mid to late 20s, early 30s. And so I think it's caused a change in our environment for sure. And then really how we manage and what's important to the people that we're hiring, because you're right, it has to speak to what's important to them. I remember, you know, working in the student housing sector so much that, you know, the millennials are very title driven. They, you know, they want to climb that ladder. And so really dialing into the workforce and the generations that you're seeing enter your field, that it's important and critical that you do match to what their needs and desires are, so that you can help them grow and be the best they can be for you and themselves.
One more thing, Monica, I want to add, you know, you're talking about a career ladder. And I want to introduce today the concept of a career lattice, because a lot of times we don't want to get out of this industry, but sometimes if we're in a small company, we might not see the ladder, you know, those opportunities for promotion. So I just want to tell your audience today that up is not the only way, is to think about your career ladder, but also your career lattice.
That's a great point, because, you know, I've had positions in my career, I'm sure you have, where, you know, I wanted to do a certain position and my higher ups came back and said, I don't really think that's the right job for you. And I was like, what? And in hindsight, it wasn't, you know, and there's times in my career I can look back where I forced myself to move up and it was really not the best fit for me. And so, you know, I think listening to your mentors and letting them guide you sometimes is really beneficial, but also knowing that sometimes I think it's more of a cha-cha. It's not as straightforward. You know, you're going to dance around a little bit and find what's relevant in your niche that really sets your soul on fire and lights that passion within you, so that you can be the best that you want to be every day. So all really good points. But yeah, well, thank you, Debbie, for joining me today. I think these are great topics for our listeners to kind of listen in and think about. It got my wheels turning for sure. And I, you know, love speaking with you today. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Good.
Well, I do what I just, you know, sign off with 3 thoughts. And, you know, I love reading. And if you follow me on any of my social media sites, you know, Lou Holtz said one day, the 3 most important questions that you can answer for someone is, number 1, can I trust you? Number 2, do you set the bar for excellence? And number 3, do you care about people as a person? And so Monica, I'm just so proud of you and the work that you're doing. And I just wish you Godspeed as you continue to expand your own platform. But remember, friends, it's all about trust, excellence, and deep care and concern. So thank you for letting me be your guest today.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. I welcome it. And guys, if you have any questions for Dr. Debbie Phillips or for myself, feel free to leave them in the comments and we're happy to get back to you guys on them. But thanks so much, Debbie, for joining me. I really, really enjoyed getting to meet you and chat with you this morning.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great week. Take care. See you soon. Hey guys, if you like this episode, please hit like and subscribe.